This is my grandson. They're using him. I want to know, first of all, your take on it, and secondly, what on earth you think could or should be done about it.
Well, the first thing is the grandfather, and it's pretty heart-rending stuff, isn't it? I mean, it's a very, very powerful testimony. He wants that boy brought back to London. Now, quite how we do that is a real challenge. What we did with Jihadi John, of course, was we basically authorised a drone strike that killed him, so we can kill British people that are out there. But quite how we engineer getting a 4-year-old boy back to London, I'm not sure.
I mean, there doesn't seem to be any kind of infrastructure. There doesn't seem to be anyone to whom one could speak. It's not as if you could even contact a representative of Daesh over there and say, you know, you're the ambassador, or you're the, you're the consul, or you're somebody. We need to talk to you. How do we get our boy back?
I think it's an incredibly difficult problem. But overall, let's take the little boy out of it, but put his mum into the picture, shall we?
Yes, let's.
You know, we've got a woman and a male from London who appear to come from completely normal backgrounds. You know, one was the daughter of a chap that drives a taxi in Deptford and Rotherhire,
from a Christian family, an observant Christian family.
Absolutely. And the other was a salesman who sold bouncy castles.
Yes.
So, you know, something really very bad is going wrong, isn't it?
I know that you bumped into Zach Goldsmith on your way in this morning, and he said to you that he'd been on this show live yesterday, and one of the things he said was that the radicalisation tools, the way in which, susceptible people are targeted, are very glamorous. You're painted a picture of a black and white world in which one thing is evil and one thing is good, and they do a hard sell very successfully. That's what he said.
I get that, and I can see that if you're 21 years old and you haven't done very well at school, you haven't got a job, and you're really down on your luck, and you've perhaps been tempted into some bad company where perhaps drugs are around and things like that, I can see for people who are kind of a bit outside of society how a radical idea can be attractive. After all, Nazism basically picked up people who were on the scrap heap of society. What is, I think, more disturbing about these two cases is these are two families who were doing quite well.
Yes.
And yet they've been attracted by radicalisation.
I mean, we've just had an imam in the studio, and he dismissed these people, saying they're part of the Anjam Chowdhury crowd. In other words, they're not a part of mainstream Islam. They're not people who would be recognised by the community or by various mosques. They're the Anjam Chowdhury crowd. If I asked you to explain what that means, would you be able to? Do you know what that is?
Sadly, yes.
Yeah.
I'm afraid, and I think we need to be a little bit more frank, perhaps, about what's been going on. Whilst the vast majority of mosques in this country do not preach hatred or unpleasantness towards other religions or treat people, as infidels, unfortunately, increasingly over the last few years, we've seen mosques, and not just in Britain, but in France and in Belgium and perhaps even in Germany too, where a very, very extreme degree of radicalism has been preached. I mean, if a Church of England bishop was to advocate on a Sunday morning that the parishioners went out and committed awful acts, he'd be sort of banged up and in prison within 24 hours. We have turned a blind eye to hate preachers, and we go on, our government goes on pretending that Saudi Arabia are our friends. And let's be frank, it is Saudi money that is funding the growth of extremism in this country, and we should have the moral courage to deal with it.
Before you in the studio, Paul Scully was my guest. I'm sure his name is very familiar to you. He's one of the new Tory MPs who's going to defy David Cameron, and he's going to vote to leave Europe. He said he had a message for you. Well, I did ask him. I said,
okay,
Nigel Farage is coming in. Do you have a message? And the message, essentially, I paraphrase a little, was this: listen, there are lots of groups in favour of leaving the EU. Why don't we stop bickering amongst ourselves and focus on the main events?
Paul, I couldn't agree more. And I have been trying desperately to bring all those groups together. I've said from the start, I support every single group that wants to leave the European Union. I've tried to broker a deal between these two rival groups who are fighting to get the nomination, Vote Leave and Leave.eu. I've even sat there spent all afternoon trying to get people together.
If there is discord between different groups, all of whom ultimately want the same thing, what is the thing that you're falling out about, or that they are disagreeing with each other about?
I think, to be honest, it's about who is the top dog, and that's really what it's all about. However, the arguments will end because at some point in time the Electoral Commission will say, right, we are going to nominate this group. They are the official umbrella group. And from that moment on, we will all come together. And Paul, I would say this to you, I would very happily come and share a platform with you or somebody from the trade union movement or the Labour Party or whatever it is, or the Green Party. I don't care. We've got to work together. We've got to have a united front because, 2016, this referendum, this isn't just a British event. It isn't just a European, it's a global event. The whole world's going to be watching this.
It's interesting that you say that you think that the real cause for discord is who will be top dog, because obviously your only MP, the only UKIP MP, Douglas Carswell, said that the party needed a fresh face as leader. Now, I'm looking at your face, it looks pretty fresh to me, but I don't think he meant you by that, did he?
It was quite funny, wasn't it, that he managed to do that on the very day when Murray produced some polling showing how popular party leaders were with their voters, and I was on 93%.
Not bad.
So not too bad.
No.
I'm not unhappy. And the other thing, sort of observation, is at the minute, a lot of the commentators say, UKIP's really declined. And the end-of-year poll from YouGov that came out yesterday showed UKIP on 17% of the national vote. That's 25% up from where it was in the general election last May. So our voter base as a party is incredibly strong. Put
your headphones on because we'll bring you on the line from Harrow. Herbie, Happy New Year to you. You're on to Nigel Farage, Herbie. You're on to Nigel.
Good morning, Nigel, and Happy New Year to you.
And to you, Herbie.
Yeah, well, I think, Nigel, it's time the British public really know the truth about the EU and what it's actually doing to us, the actual cost of it, and how much they were given by their salary increase just before Christmas, and how much they're interfering with elected parliaments, i.e. in Poland and Portugal, and how much interference, the true cost, and they're actually also spending our money on trying to keep us in. I think they're afraid of losing us because I think the rot will start if we leave, and I think other countries will do so.
Well, Herbie, what's for certain is that if Britain votes to divorce itself from political union, whilst at the same time making it clear we want to have trade relationships and be good next-door neighbours, if that happens at some point this year, the project's had it, because the Austrians will want the same, the Swedes will want the same, and the whole thing will change. I would say, actually, bravo. Let's have a completely different Europe where we can be friends together, but not have a flag and an anthem and everything else. The problem, Herbie, is that one side of the argument say we'll be worse off if we leave the European Union. The other side say we'll be better off. And what people need are some very simple facts. Our net cost of this is £34 million every single day. The vast majority of our laws are now made somewhere else. And some people think, Herbie, we're better governed at a higher level in Europe. I'm going to campaign saying to people, we're British, we should be proud of it, we should run our own country, make our own laws in our own parliament, and our own Supreme Court should be supreme. So I will use simple language and facts that cannot be contradicted.
I'm here with Nigel Farage, as I know you can hear. If you want to speak to him, the number's 0207 224 2000. Many topics to broach with him this morning. That's why I cannot stick to the 15-minute rule and get rid of him. I need to ask him and crave his indulgence. Will you stay till 8:30 with me?
Of course I will.
Thank you very much indeed. So much to talk to him about. Let me give you a few headlines that I'm going to be flinging in his direction. How about this one? 1 in 2 Londoners will be an immigrant within 15 years. 1 in 2 Londoners will be an immigrant within 15 years. Migrants channel stroll to asylum in Britain. This is the gentleman who walked 31 miles through the tunnel and has been told he can stay in this country. And Swedes bring back checkpoints to stop migrants. All of those matters. Your calls to Nigel Farage. That will be straight after the travel news with Bobby Radio London. And I'm told that his time is so precious, in fact, he can only stay till 8:23. That is what your people have told my people.
Okay,
you can't stay till 8:30. You're too busy for the likes of us. So let's talk fast. Let's kick off with this headline today. 1 in 2 Londoners will be an immigrant within 15 years. 1 in 3 people currently living in London were born abroad, and immigrants will account for half the city's population within 15 years. That is according to official statistics. The population of London now 8.6 million, vast swathes of the city, home to pockets of nationalities from across the globe.
My concern is not where people come from originally. My concern is whether they are integrated and we're living together, speaking the same language, obeying the same law, our kids are interacting with each other and playing football in the street together. If we can do that, then it's not a problem at all. But if immigration levels into London are so rapid and so fast that those levels of integration are impossible, then what you finish up with is a divided society, which is bad news for everybody. I am a firm believer that immigration can be an incredibly positive thing for this country, but not on its current terms, where we have a total open door to everybody.
OK, front page story today, all over the press. Migrants channel stroll to asylum in Britain. Now, it wasn't a stroll. This guy was risking his life every step of the way. This is the fellow. His name's Abdul Rahman Haroon.
And he's Sudanese, isn't he?
Yeah, he walked right through the Channel Tunnel at enormous risk to his own life.
He may well be very enterprising.
Yeah.
However, I think it is completely outrageous that he's been allowed to stay in this country, because that has just sent a message this morning to 5,000 or 6,000 people who were in the jungle at Calais. Have a go. Take a chance. Don't worry what chaos you cause. Don't worry about the risk to your own life. If you get to Folkestone, you can stay. And I saw Theresa May, the Home Secretary, at the Tory Party conference, banging the table, how tough we're going to be on illegal immigration. And here we have somebody who has come to Britain totally illegally being allowed to stay. It sends the wrong message.
What do you think is the reason for the decision? To say, yes, you can. Is it that you did something so death-defying, so dangerous, so heroic, you deserve to stay?
I mean, he's not getting a badge for being bold, although he could do.
Well, what is it then?
It's our cowardice. Look, when we discover illegal immigrants in Britain, fewer than 1 in 4 ever get sent back anywhere. We are absolutely gutless and weak, and we're scared of the human rights lobby and everybody else. We need to be saying, this country is not open to illegal immigration.
Meanwhile, we have very interesting news, don't we, from Sweden and indeed from Denmark. And the headline for this one is Sweden has reintroduced checkpoints on its border with Denmark for the first time in half a century in what they're describing here in the papers as a desperate attempt to stem the flow of migrants. And I mean, I was watching the news last night. I'm sure you were too. You saw Swedes saying, but what do you mean we have to produce our papers to get across this bridge? We've been driving across this bridge every day in our lifetimes. The last time was 1957. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
And it seems to be counterintuitive. It seems to be against all that they stand for. And yet the papers call these desperate measures. What's your take on what's going on there?
Well, the dream of the free movement of people in Europe, and that means free movement to Britain, but within the Schengen zone, it means crossing boundaries without having to produce any ID or any risk of your boot being searched of your car or anything. That dream was working fine. All the while things were going swimmingly in Europe. We've just opened up our doors to unlimited numbers of people coming in from Syria and North Africa and Afghanistan. And whilst within that number there are genuine refugees, also within that number are too many bad people who are looking to use this as an excuse, whether it's to bring in people through trafficking or wherever else it may be. I mean, there is a very shocking report this morning in the Daily Mail Online that the police in Cologne are searching for 1,000 men. 1,000 men who on New Year's Eve were assaulting women in Cologne. 1,000 men. One woman who said that she was actually physically touched and assaulted 100 times in the course of a very short journey. So the reason the Swedes are effectively putting back border controls is there is a fear that through our kindliness and good-heartedness, what we've actually done is to allow too many criminal gangs and too many people into Europe that can cause us harm. And I think
if we do exit the EU, what impact will that have on our choices about refugees and asylum seekers? I'm talking about the genuine people who really desperately need to get out of their country.
I've always thought that we should take genuine refugees into Britain. My family were refugees. They were French Protestants having a tough time a few hundred years ago, and we let in Huguenots. We let in the when Armin threatened, if you remember, to kill the Jewish people, all those migrations that came to Britain. But actually, in total number, they were very small. I mean, last year, 642,000 people settled in this country. The point is, if we had a tighter Australian-style point system for who could be an immigrant to Britain, we'd have more room to allow genuine refugees.
We're going to be talking to Stephen Twigg about refugees.
And can I just say very quickly, if I can, that nobody ever says a word for the Christians in Iraq and Syria. They're being systematically murdered, and nobody has made any provision to try and help Christians from those countries.
And final question, you look okay to me, but what on earth went on with that car crash in France?
Oh, look, I never wanted this story to come out. Something unpleasant happened.
What happened?
Well, the wheel nuts on the car had been loosened. I haven't reported it to the police. I don't want an investigation. I don't want an insurance claim. I'm putting it behind me. Unpleasant things happen in politics.
You were in France at the time, though? Someone in France took again you to such an extent that they loosened your wheel nuts?
How this happened, where it happened, I simply don't know. But
did you have a crash as a result?
I did. But
and are you okay?
I did. I'm fine. I'm fine. I've survived worse crashes than that.
And do you fear for your life in general? Do you worry that someone might do a similar thing here?
I don't think anybody, whether they're a footballer or a rock star or a politician, or whatever they may be, even yourself, anybody in public life has to be slightly cautious. There are some funny people out there.
All right, let's take a call as your grand finale. On the line is Barbara in Hayes. Hello, Barbara. Good morning to you. You're on to Nigel Farage.
Hello, Nigel.
Good morning.
All right. Happy New Year to you.
And to you.
I've been trying to get onto your programme. Regarding Hillingdon Council, they reckon that they're going to give all these illegal immigrants a holiday up to the London Eye, up in London. But my daughter, she can't even get out of bed. She's been sent out of hospital and they can't give her any care, nursing care. They can't afford it.
What's the matter with her, Barbara? What's her illness?
Well, she's got arthritis and she's schizophrenic.
Oh, dear. Okay.
We've had this for 30-odd years,
yes.
but that's a different story. But, the carers haven't got time to look after her. Not in that respect. They're wonderful people, those carers. Really wonderful.
Let me see if Nigel's got any response for this, Barbara.
Barbara, look, I think there is a growing feeling amongst people that we do sometimes prioritise those that have just turned up on our doorstep, that we send far too much money away in foreign aid. We give more away than any other country in the Western world, and that actually what we ought to be doing is perhaps focusing and looking after a bit more our own people. And I think that's really what your call is aimed at. And I don't want us to be mean. I really don't. But I do think there's been too little emphasis put on looking after our own people and putting our own people first, which is really what a British government ought to be doing.
Barbara, thank you for calling. Nigel Farage, thank you very much
Thank
indeed
you.
for giving of your time. I know you have to leave, and so I'm going to say goodbye to you, let you make your own way out, which I think is appallingly bad manners, but I've got no real choice.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.